going to talk about the Three Sisters. Now, many people are already familiar with the Three Sisters and what it represents, and that is an indigenous combination of foods, corn and beans and squash, which they grew together. And they typically did grow their food on mounds. They didn't do it in rows the way it's done today, and the way the Europeans came and forced, as the conquest-driven people that they were, they forced the indigenous up and down the entire Western Hemisphere to plant things the European way, which was in rows, which we still do today. And of course, we need to feed a lot of people. It has some advantages, but it has many disadvantages as well too. With the Three Sisters, the corn provided the climbing for the beans provided nitrogen for the soil, and the squash, which was a lower plant, provided retention of moisture, and also helped to block the sunlight, so minimizing the weeds and also helping minimize the bugs as well too. So the three grew together, and there's places, villages that have been reconstructed where you can see the Three Sisters growing at times. Now this type of planting was universal. Not only was corn, because of the trade routes, grown as far north as it can be grown and as far south as it can be grown, showing how ubiquitous it was within the Western Hemisphere, but also this method of growing them together was also pretty common all the way through. So now in South America, they had these milpas, as they call them, and generally the indigenous way of growing food was completely foreign to Europeans, and this is why they came in and they just didn't get many things, and that was one of them. Now they were kept weeded, of course, but the indigenous would grow all their food together. And of course it wasn't all fenced off like in Europe, because they had livestock in Europe, and the noble system had everything fenced off anyway, so the serfs couldn't go wherever they wanted to go. So they were used to fences, and they were used to little squares, and they were used to organized looking rows. So the indigenous, in fact, had, as we know, a lot of quality about what they did with their foods, but they did grow all of their different plants together in most of the cultures, particularly these milpas in South America, where they may grow 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 different plants together, all in one location. Of course, they would keep it weeded, and it was organized looking to them, but to someone who wasn't used to that, it was not really organized looking at all. So now the Three Sisters has a comprehensive diet just with the three of them. Remember, beans, where you get protein. Now if you add an avocado to that, you have a 100% complete diet, which they would have had in these milpas. Of course, they would have had all four of those items growing in there. Within the Three Sisters, corn, beans, and squash, you've got all 8 essential amino acids. You've got all of the essential fatty acids, and you've got a complex carbohydrate. And as I say, they didn't know about nutrition at the time, but this had been around for thousands of years, this method of growing these three plants. The Three Sisters.